This is Kim Rowe with For the Nest, and this is my Bye Bye Baby project. I hope you enjoy it. I fell in love with this frame, but I knew I wanted to repurpose it. This is the Charlotte stamp from Iron Orchid Designs. It was part of their summer 2024 release, and I had used it on a couple other things and fell in love with it. And so here I painted a board. It's actually about 16 by 20, I believe. And I have a really amazing antique frame that I'm going to put this board in. And the frame is gilded in a gold bronzish color. So here what I'm doing is I'm taking some of the stamps from the Charlotte set and arranging them on this board just to kind of give me an idea of where I want to place them. And what I want to make sure is that I'm actually putting the stamp side down so that when I go to stamp it, it's going to be the impression that I'm thinking. Like for instance, the bird, if I placed it the other way that I almost did, it's not going to face that direction. So just make sure that your stamp side is down. This also allows you to figure out how things will fit in the area that you are stamping. So you can make sure that you can fit everything you want instead of just haphazardly stamping away like I have done many times. So now that I've kind of got my design figured out, I take my thin mounts and I've cut these into smaller pieces, and I'm going to be using bronze Luxe Metallics by Paint Couture. These are great metallic paints. And I've lifted the stamp that I'm going to be using with the piece of thin mount, just laying it lightly on the backing. It'll stick to it, and then it will be in the kind of the design of how I wanted it. This is just a single stamp, but if I wanted to lift multiple stamps at a time, I could use a bigger thin mount, but I wanted to do these in sections. And now I'm using a brayer. It's an IOD brayer. I've put the paint on the brayer and then rolled it onto the stamp. This allows for, you could use a sponge or something like that, or a brush, but many times when you do that, it almost puts too much paint on your stamp, and then it can really muddle up your image. Where using a brayer with the paint just puts enough paint on there to give you a nice impression, but doesn't give you paint that goes into the inset part of the stamp. Now this part here, I'm going to be using two different stamps. Actually, the paintbrush stamp and the bird stamp are both from the new Charlotte mold. And as you can see, I want the little feet to kind of look like they're resting onto the paintbrushes. And so what I'm going to do is I look at that combination of the two pieces and I figure out which one do I want to show up on top, and that's the one that I'm going to place first. So I want the feet to be showing on top of the paintbrush. So here I am going to ink this one up and then place the bird on first. And this is where I will use the masks to create this effect. But before I do the second stamp, I'm going to let the bird dry, and I will move on to the other stamps first, just to allow the paint just to dry a little bit before I put the mask over the bird. So here's an example where I will be picking up two stamps with one piece of thin mount. This way it keeps them in the alignment that I had them set, and I don't have to do them individually. Because they're small stamps, they fit on this small piece of thin mount. Like I said before, I could use one big thin mount to do the whole thing, but especially because I'm using the mask in the one area and I had cut up my thin mount to use it this way. I find it easier for myself, but you could do it in one big piece and just stamp them all at once. One other thing I wanted to mention, and I try and mention this whenever I talk about stamping, is when you are pressing onto your when you're pressing your image onto your project, I always try to hold with one hand and press with the other hand, and then you can switch that up from left to right, or just to make sure that your image is getting fully connected to your project. But if you're trying to press with both hands and kind of make sure that the impression is pressed down with both hands, sometimes your project may slip a little bit, especially because of paint or ink on a slick surface. So always hold with one hand and press with the other. And on this one, this bird cage was just a little bigger than what I had pieces of thin mount, so I just used two together and worked it that way. The reason for the thin mount is because the back of these stamps is like a rubber, and it will be very hard to smooth out your impression. So the thin mounts give you a great way to not only hold the stamp in the right place and hover over your area, but also once you press it down, you can really smooth it out nicely, again, like with one hand, and then hold with the other. And it just makes it much easier to control that. So now I'm ready to put the paintbrushes in with the bird, and what I'm going to do is every stamp set comes with a set of masks. The newer sets have actually the printed image on the mask, so you can see the old one here. They were clear. It was a little tricky to find the exact one that I was looking for, where the new ones are printed, and so I can easily find the bird that I want to use for this project. So what I'm going to do is take the bird mask that is the exact same size as the image that I stamped and place it on top. Now you want to make sure that that paint is dry that you're putting this on top of, or it will smear your paint. And then I'm going to take my paintbrushes and ink them up just like I did all the other stamps. And once I get that inked up, you're just going to stamp it like you would any other stamp, but what's going to happen is the mask on the bird is going to cover the feet where the paintbrush, and I'm sorry my hat is in the way, but it's going to cover the brush, cover the feet, I'm sorry, with the brush, and it's going to look like his little feet are perched right on the paintbrush. So I'll get a better image of this to show you. That's my project, my Bye Bye Baby frame makeover. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have created something like this, please send me pictures. I always love to see your projects. If you haven't already subscribed and liked my YouTube channel, I would appreciate it. Have a great day.